Barb's here, Jesse's here, Lynn's here, Randy's connecting. Looks like he's still trying. We'll give him another minute here.
I don't see our staff.
There we go.
We hear you.
I'm sitting at the front desk without the laptop by me.
I need 1 second.
One.
You can start it. I'll be back before you get far.
All right.
Who is the person behind the voice behind the black box that says City of Green Bay?
City of Green Bay is actually Shelby. She's the one running the Zoom meeting.
Oh, okay. Where's the Director Grenier?
This is Assistant Director Jim Burnett.
But
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Number 2, the one who does all the work. Right, Jim?
Pretty much.
now are we recording yet?
Yes.
All right. The January 12th, 2022 Improvement Service Committee will come to order. We'll note all members are present: Alder Burnett, Alder Gerlach, Alder Scannell, and myself, Alder Weary. And we'll note that all actions taken tonight will be a referral to the full council next Tuesday. Can I get an approval of the
Motion to
agenda?
approve.
Second.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Gerlach. Any changes? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes. Anything changed? Update? No?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Gerlach to approve the minutes. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Now, I do apologize. I did put on 2 items here. There actually were 2 more items that got removed kind of partway through by Director Grenier because he wanted to be here to talk about it and present it. There was going to be a review of the wheel tax and a revenue and output and see where we're at with that. And then a presentation of the street ratings citywide because we just, redid the street ratings on every street again this year. And so I wanted that to be available for everyone before we talked about the streets that are going to be reconstructed and resurfaced next year. So might be kind of hard to do 1 and 2 here without the whole package, but we can certainly look at it.
Yeah, because I do have some information for you on number 1 that is not in the package.
Okay. Well, number 1, consideration with possible action on request to review the list of streets for resurfacing and reconstruction in the 2022 capital improvement program. Assistant Director.
Basically what I wanted to let you know is you guys have got the list of the resurfacing streets in the packet, and that ends up being, if I did my math right, 23,912 or 913 feet. So then to that, the list of the reconstruction streets, we did not put the lengths on there for you. And those lengths add up to 12,557 feet. So that's a grand total of 36,470 feet for the program this year. And then as part of the CD program, we're going to redo a portion of 3rd and 4th Street in the near downtown. And that's another 740 feet. So the whole grand total of the resurfacing and reconstruction program is just a little over 37,000 feet this year, which is above and beyond what our target was. I think our target was like 34,600, if my memory's correct. So we're actually above and beyond what we had actually had for a target.
Perfect. That was going to be my question, is if we had reached that. I know the council had set a goal to do more than last year, and I forgot what percent it was, but.
The 1.6, I think it was.
Okay.
Yep, yeah.
Questions from the committee about any of the streets or where we're at? And we can always hold this too for next week too. Go ahead, Alder Burnett.
Yeah, I mean, obviously each alder has a desire for roads to be done in their district, but it's the second straight year that District 12, the road that I recall seeing, I mean, I'm pretty sure last year there wasn't a single road that was reconstructed or resurfaced. Assistant Director, could you kind of comment on that? Do you know why?
Surely if you look at,
yeah,
we had Hillcrest and Haven in your district, was that 2 years ago already, I think. And then in 25,
you got the 3.
You got the big reconstruct for Country Club coming up in 25, which that's not every district sees those. And it's just the way the statistics are, your district doesn't have as many bad streets as a lot of others, is unfortunately. But, as part of the selection process, that is one of the things that we do struggle with, is going through the list and trying to eliminate all the 2s and the 3s, but also equitably distribute it throughout the city in the different districts. So that's kind of the way that we struggle with it. And I agree, is this year, last year, I don't think we had anything in 12. So.
All right, thank you, Alder Burnett.
Again, every alder, has these concerns, I'm sure, but when I go to my constituents, quite frankly, there are some bad roads. Maybe they're not as bad as other parts of the city in part, but there are some bad roads still in my district. And to go 2 full years without so much as even a reconstruct, that's alarming.
And the goal was to hopefully have this paired with that listing of streets and their rating, so we could see where it all kind of falls. The Director Green wanted to roll that out, so we could discuss this a little bit and still hold it, so we can kind of see why it's falling where it is.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a decision, it's a decision. I understand there's a reason why alders should kind of be out of the political process, because you got some real, alders who are really persistent about things. And I kind of have a level of trust in staff that it's fair and that the process is fair, but you try to convince that to the greater public that it's hard to say that everything is fair if they don't have anything to kind of go off of, like, where's my street on the list, calls all the time still. So I understand it's difficult. I get that. It's not a criticism on staff. I just want to make sure that if I go another year without anything in my district, that I can say to my people that, hey, I raised the stink at least in a city committee meeting, that it's been noticed. That's all.
Thank you, Alder Burnett. Alder Gerlach, and Alder Dorf.
Just a question. I assume there is a system, a plan by which these decisions are made, right, Alder Weary?
I would direct that to Assistant Director Burnett. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Assistant Director Burnett?
There's the plan, and with the move now for the 5-year CIP approval, is we actually have the 5-year list out there, which shows where the programs are going in the subsequent years. Now, you have to understand that typically years 1 and 2 of that 5-year CIP are fairly tight, but then you get into years 3, 4, and 5, and that's where you do see some stuff bounce around due to developments and things like that. Other utility failures that may happen, and things like that. So, but if you look at, and I think you'll be getting the list for the 5-year here shortly, because the 5 year is going to be discussed at finance and at council in the next 2 or 3 meetings.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up question. It just seems logical to me. Would it be the case that some parts of the city just have newer roads and some parts of the city have older roads? And that's why, for example, there's always roads being resurfaced and reconstructed in my district because, it's such an old part of the city. Is it a function of age a lot?
That is one of the things that we do struggle with, yes.
I struggle with age too, I understand.
Well, we all do.
Yeah, Mark's here, he knows.
I know, thank you.
Well, first, Alder Dorf, we'll go someone younger, much younger than you, Mark. Alder Dorf? And then Alder Sawyer.
Well, I'm fairly delighted this year, but in the past couple of years, I haven't had very many streets in my district. So, it goes around. Sometimes you have a lot of streets, sometimes you don't have very many. And the areas here that I see being resurfaced and reconstructed are the older areas of the District 1, because we have a lot of new streets out here that probably won't see action for many years. So I'm pretty pleased this year, and I do trust the staff. I do know there's a plan. I do know there's a rating system, and I'm glad that we don't politicize it. I'm glad that it just can get decided by staff, bring it forward, and then council as a whole votes on it. So I think it's a good list for me, at least this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder Dorf. Alder Steuer.
The old Alder Steuer, yeah. Anyway, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things. Director Burnett, did you, is the ASER report out for the recent one, 2021?
Yeah, the 21 re-ratings are available.
Okay, so in the past, some of the alders know this, I went through those pretty closely, and I put together a spreadsheet of roads that, the ones that really needed repair. I did it because I thought it was important. Others might not have thought that. But, I think the hard thing is, you look at certain roads, even in my district, I had a couple of roads resurfaced that weren't really in really bad shape, and the two roads that I really wanted to have resurfaced weren't. So I think that's always a question. We have the wheel tax, so we have that whole situation. We've got the normal amount of roads that we're trying to do, and I know Alder Wery in the past has asked for 3%. I realize we have 450 miles of roads. It's hard to do 3%, but I think just looking at the PASER report, having that information, set up for the alders, I think is very important. If there's something your department can do on that. You also have a GIS specialist that is going to be coming on board. And me being a map guy, I always like to see a graph or a map showing maybe over a 5-year period what was done, what was resurfaced, what was reconstructed. And, we could choose and look at a few things, but I would like to see a map that we could look at and all the others could look at and say, yep, okay, I see this, I can see the pattern, and we just have something to talk to. For example, Bond Street in my area is really in bad shape. I've been asking for 10 years to have that thing fixed, and now this year they are. So now I can go down Bond Street and not hide myself, from the citizens because they're on me constantly. So I know it's not a perfect science. I know there's a ton of roads that need doing. Roosevelt Street, Irwin Street, there's a number of areas that people have complained in other districts in the central city that really need help. So all I'm saying is I appreciate the efforts, thank you for the list. But, just let it be known that it would be good if you and Public Works could keep us alders apprised of the roads that are out there on the PASER report, things that are coming down the pike, and just keep us in the loop. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder Steuer. Oh, Scannell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to say, Alder, sorry, I appreciate very much what you did with the roads there. That list.
Oh, no, I'm not. Okay.
And Alder Burnett, I bet if you shaved, you make it a road in your. I think it's severe. Is the problem there?
Let's shave right now if that's as simple as it is.
And Alder Wery, I think that your proposal to, it was nice to bring this forward and have a little taste, but I think we should hold this until and do it all together. So I make a motion to hold.
Second.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Burnett to hold this item. If I could, if it's all right with the committee, Jim, Assistant Director Burnett, could you put the ratings for each of these streets that's being done? Like the first one, Pine Ride Court, just put to Pine Ridge Drive, put the rating of those streets for each one. So we kind of know, all right, these are these, or if they're not, we can have a reasoning of why they're being done.
Yeah, the streets that you see on the list here are predominantly all 3s and 2s. There's
Okay.
a couple small areas of possibly a 4 because, for example, if you've got one block of a street that's a 4, but the only way in and out of there is across a
Yep.
section of 3. We're gonna do
Yep.
that section of 4, so we're not running over new asphalt or new concrete to get that street done. Now, one thing I would like to add to Alder Steuer's comments though about, and I wanna kind of remind the alders, is you can't just look at the Paiser results. That's a small piece of the puzzle. What you need to do is we need to take and marry the Paiser rating with the condition of all the utilities underneath the streets, and then also the type of street that, how it was constructed. For example, if you've got an asphalt street out there where you're paved in the gutters, that street now no longer becomes eligible for a resurfacing. It has to be reconstructed. If we've got streets with concrete base, those typically are not resurfaced, those would be a reconstruct. So sometimes those could be rated a 3, but now they get pushed back in the program 3, 4, 5 years, because typically what we do is we do about 20 to 24,000 feet of resurfacing, and then the remainder of the program is made up with reconstruct. And that's all kind of based off the balance of the difference between the cost of construction for a reconstruct is higher than that for resurfacing. So, it's actually a pretty intricate process of coming up with these lists. I wish it was as simple as putting the list on the wall and then throwing darts at it, but it's a little more intricate and a little more goes into it than that. And again, with the budget seasons and things like that, it's a matter of balancing the budgets for the utilities, balancing the budgets for pavement and all of that as well, so.
All right. Thank you, Alder Gillick.
Could someone please spell Paiser and tell me what a Paiser report is?
Yes, basically, the DOT has a regimented description for rating streets. So it's a standardized way of looking at a street. If you've got these types of distresses in the street, that determines what the street is rated at. Basically, a brand new street would be rated a 10. A street that's totally falling apart would be a number 1. So basically what we've got in our system, we've got a couple streets that are rated a 2. They're very minor streets, and which is why they haven't been done. Right now, typically our reconstruct and resurfacing programs, we're trying to get rid of the 3s. And like everybody knows, is with the weather we're having now and stuff like that, with these freeze thaws and more of the freeze thaw cycles, that's actually harder on the streets. So by doing the Paiser rating we do it every odd year. So we just completed it in 21. The next year that we'll do our ratings will be 23.
How do you spell Paiser?
PASCR.
Yep.
I knew you'd know. Thank you.
Alder Gerlach, I will send what I had. I gave it to your previous Alder, but I have a list of that. I will send it to you.
All right. Any other comments? We have a motion and a second to hold. And if you could, Director Matt, put streets that are going to be done, that should be easy enough to delineate those. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 2, actually, I'm going to just ask to be held. It's consideration with possible action on the request to include resurfacing of Hickory Hill Drive and Redwood Drive in the 2022 capital improvement program. The reason for Redwood, actually, and I might be wrong on my years, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 5 years, Redwood was going to be done, and it was held similar to, I think, it was a Hillcrest. It was held up for a number of reasons. One, the wheel tax was up in the air. So I think the residents now feel, well, gee, now we just keep getting shoved off because we wanted to wait. But at the time, it was one of the worst roads. So when will it come back?
Yep.
And so I think if we could see the ratings, we could kind of understand it.
Yep, and we do have, Redwood is scheduled for 2024 now. And then, just for your information, on the section that you had asked for on Hickory Hill, that one is carrying a Paiser rating of a 4 right now. So, with going over another winter and then being scored in 23, if that goes down to a 3, then that looks like that would start getting into the program.
Okay, well then I think Alder Steuer.
Well, yeah, Chair, thank you. like I said, I had requested like a map. Is that something that would be the alders would like to see? You could see your own district. You could see what's been upgraded, what's been paved, what's been reconstructed. I would like to see that myself. So I don't know if that's a request that you think would be amenable.
Well, it wouldn't be under this item, but we are having those PASER ratings come back to our next committee. So I can just, email Director Grenier and ask him to include that, because I've seen those in the past when you've asked. I have seen when they did that, and it is a nice way to visually see it.
I
Right.
think
Okay.
our GIS guy might have that already. That's why I put down a note to check on that, Alder
Okay.
Steuer, and see if what we have, and then see how far back he might have gone. Because every year what we do also is, I know we do, for example, for our program for 2022, we have that on the GIS layer right now, because what we do is we send that out to all the different utilities, like AT&T, Public Service, Charter, all those folks. And then they take a look at that and they look to see if they've got any work done to do on those streets as well. So then while we're doing our work, they'll try to get in and get that done so that there's less disturbance for the residents. But
Sounds good.
the
Sounds
past
good.
construction, I
Thank you.
think, is done too.
Thank you, Alders. Sorry, Brenner, my apologies. You did say Redwood was for 2023 on the plan?
2024,
2024, okay.
yep.
But that is maybe subject to change. It could move to 2023 because that's still, a year away, year and a half away, whatever.
It depends on how it rates next year, because basically it's in the 24 program based on the current rating.
Well, and obviously, as I had pointed out, it was good enough or bad enough to need redoing 5 years ago. I don't know why it keeps getting kicked as not good, not bad enough to be done now. Does that make sense? It was so bad 5 years ago, we
No,
had to redo it, but now it's not bad enough that we can wait a couple years. So I don't.
Yes, and I don't know the history of how it got bumped or why it was bumped, and
Okay.
so I'd have to
So
check
if we
into
could,
that.
I'll gladly receive and place this on file if we can just keep that in mind, perhaps move it up a year from 24 to 23. Don't need to make a decision on that, just I would encourage looking at that. Alder Burnett?
Same thing with my district, Alder Wary. There are a couple, before I became an alderman, before I moved out here, my road was so bad that it was going to need to be replaced. And I say that with sensitivity because I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to promote my road among all others, but it was to the point that it was so bad that the city was going to do it, and the postcard survey was turned down by my neighbors, who were not my neighbors at the time. There's another one on San Lorenz and right down the list. So the perception, I think, in some circles in the public is that those residents are being punished. And I see that. I don't mean that that sounds harsh, but that's the perception in some of these circles, that they're being punished because they, at the mechanism at that time, they said, no, we don't want to pay the money. The wheel tax came. So again, that's we got to be careful with how we address those, because you're right, Alder Wary, they were bad enough at one point to be done, and now we're told they're not bad enough. They wait a couple more years.
All right. Thanks, Alder Burnett. Alder Dorf?
So I think absolutely that as alders, we must get out to our constituents and eliminate that misconception. They certainly are not being punished. And perhaps back then it was a resurfacing, and now because they did turn it down, it may have to go to a reconstruction, which is maybe why they're not on a resurfacing list, for example. But alders, we all know they're not getting punished, and you're their alder and they trust you. You need to let them know that. You need to let them know there's a non-political process in place. It's a good process. It's a rating process by experts. And that's how it's getting done. And so please don't fan the flames. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Dorf. Well, I'll say that whenever humans are in charge, there could be bias. So,
No.
Alder Steuer?
There's no bias here. Anyways, thank you, Chair. I was going to ask Director Burnett, as far as the PASER report, in the past, I remember, one of the public works employees would go out and they would rate the roads. And I'm just wondering what that process is. I mean, do you have one or two people? Is it an assigned position for one of the engineers? Who in the city goes out and rates it? And like I said, that person has a skill set. They might say, well, this is a 5. And we might say, oh, it's more like a 3. I realize we're not the engineers, but I'm just wondering what that process is, in Public Works, you know, who would that do it? Is there one for each east side, west side? Just fill me in on that.
Now, the way it works is we have the pavement technician will go out and he'll take someone with him to basically drive them, and they drive every street of the city. And they take, it's normally about I want to say a 1 to 2 month process. And they've gone through the training through the DOT. And so we always use the same person so you have the consistency, because that is one of the issues of if you have changeover in that position. Now, like you said, you got, for example, if I look at the road, I might say it's a 5. You look at the road, you might say it's a 3. You know, Alder Weary looks at it, it might be a 7. And you get those personal ways of looking at it. So we've had the same person in that same position now for a couple cycles here, so we're starting to see the consistency back into the ratings. Because I do agree, is if you look at the rating systems there for a couple of years when we had staff turnover, the ratings would go from like a 5 to a 6. Well, how can a street get better? You know, that typically doesn't happen. So, I mean, that's, again, and it goes back to what Elder Weary said, is you're dealing with, you know, we're all people, and you develop that, you know, now that we've got someone that's been doing it for a couple cycles, you're starting to see the consistency. And, I mean, that really helps us with the program, because now it's, again, it gives us the information so that we can feed that out to you guys so you can get it to the residents so they understand what we're doing. I mean, and that's what it's all about, is educating the residents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alder Gerlach, then Alder Scannell.
Just a quick question. Are there objective standards by which this measurement or assessment is taken? Or does somebody just look at the road and say, I think it's a 3, maybe a 3.5? How does that, do they have standards they use?
There are, to my knowledge, there's a set of descriptions on the type of distress in the street, which will lead to the various ratings.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Alder Gerlach. Alder Scannell?
Just going to say, if you are satisfied with this, Alder Weary, we motion to receive and place on file?
Actually, if it's okay, I would like to hear just a little more explanation on Redwood and why it's not being presented for
So
this year or
motion to
next
hold?
year. Yeah, that'd be fine.
I make a motion to hold, and Alder Gerlach, you took the words right out of my mouth. I rate the street a 3.5.
I
right.
second part of your motion.
Motion Alder Scannell, second Alder Gerlach to hold this item. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So next time we'll have those first 2 items plus the piece report and the wheel tax item. So we'll have a lot of street stuff coming next or 2 weeks. Number 3, consideration with possible action on a request by KS Energy Services to renew the annual hold harmless agreement for access to the City of Green Bay sewer system to conduct inspection of the sewer mains and laterals.
Okay, this item is very similar to item number 4. This is an annual item that comes up every year. What happens when Public Service is out doing natural gas work throughout the city is they hire these folks, KS Energy Services, and then Speedy Clean, which is the one in item number 4. And what these folks do is they'll go in and they will televise the sanitary sewer and sanitary laterals, just to make sure that while they're installing the natural gas lines, that they don't penetrate any, into the sanitary sewer system. So it's all for safety aspect, because obviously if you get the natural gas into the homes through the sanitary sewer, you could have, could lead to an explosion. So it's a safety item. And this is, these folks have been doing this for KS Energies for at least 5 years since I've been in this position, and Speedy Clean, I think, for the last 3. So
All
we
right.
would recommend
Thank you, Greg.
approval.
Any questions from the committee? Entertain a motion.
Motion to
I
approve.
move that we approve this. And
Second.
I would like
Second.
to, may I point out that this is the first item we've ever had that I recognize and I remember doing it a year ago. At last, some experience.
Noted. All right, motion Alder Gerlach, second by Alder Scannell to approve number 3. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. All right, similarly, number 4, consideration with possible action on request by Speedy Clean Inc. to enter into an annual hold harmless agreement for access to the City of Green Bay sewer system to conduct inspection of the sewer laterals. Any questions
Motion to
for?
approve.
Okay, motion by Alder Gerlach. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Scannell. Any questions on that one? Comments? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Number 5, report of actions taken. So these licenses were granted. Sidewalk Builders, Complete Concrete Solutions. B, Dorner Equipment Sales and Service. C, J.C. Santee Construction. D, James J. Kalmus and Sons. E, Martell Construction. F, Town Construction.
Motion to receive and place on file.
All right, motion by Alder Scannell.
Second.
Second by Alder Burnett to receive and place on file the sidewalk builder licenses that were given out. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And there's a list of tree and brush trimmers. A Four Season Tree Care. B, Asplin Tree Expert. C, Best Enterprises. D is Epic Innovations. DBA Epic Tree Care. E is Fall Right Services. F, Holtker Brothers. G, Selner Tree and Shrub Care. H, Yesterday's Trees. And I, Z's Tree Services. And most of them had LLC, but so.
Motion to
What do you wish to
receive and
propose?
place on file.
Second.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Gerlach to receive and place on file. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Underground Sprinkler System. A, Irrigation Doctors LLC. Lizer, Wisconsin, Inc. NEW Irrigation LLC. DBA Conserva Irrigation. Rainmaster Irrigation, Inc. And the Sprinkler Company, Inc. What are your wishes for the number 3?
Motion to place on file. Receive and place on file.
Motion by Alder Gerlach to receive and place on file, second by Alder Scannell. Those in favor? I think we said.
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
opposed? Motion carried. F, informational, director's report. Anything wild and crazy going on, Assistant Director?
No, there's really nothing going on right now to report on.
Our salt is holding up. We're going to have enough.
I haven't signed any big purchases for salt for it yet, so we're still running off of what we had from last year.
Excellent. I know, wasn't it last year, a couple years ago, where there's kind of a shortage, and when we needed a bunch, and everybody was running short?
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why I think we buy it on the futures. So a lot of times we spend money in the fall for what we think we're going to use. So
Let's hope we don't need it. All right, any questions from the committee? All right, what are
Motion
your
to receive
wishes?
and place on file.
Motion to receive and place in file, Alder Scannell.
Second.
Second by Alder Gerlach. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that one's carried. And our next meeting. January,
26th.
2 weeks from today. All right. That's about all we have.
Motion to adjourn it.
Motion by Alder Scannell.
Second.
Second by Alder Brunette. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Everyone have a good evening.
Aye.
Thanks, Jim.
okay, thank you.